Hey guys, just popping in to remind you that it is Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Royalty Soaps has 10 soap bundles. 9 of the 10 are discounted and they all come with free shipping to the United States. I know we all hate that feeling of wanting to know what the price is and then you go to the cart and you're like, all this shipping money. You're not gonna have that issue with these bundles. They are selling very quickly and they are limited. I will have a link for all the bundles down below in the description box. Hello everyone, welcome back to Royalty Soaps. Today I am going to make the easiest coffee soap you will ever make. First of all, we're going to be using the 𝘰𝘬𝘧𝘧𝘦𝘦 50/50 lye water solution. So you're not going to be mixing up sodium hydroxide beads or flakes with water. I'm going to take that step out for you. That already makes this a way easier project. Second of all of your oils are pre-mixed because we're using my collaborative blend with 𝘰𝘬𝘧𝘧𝘦𝘦. These are the cold processed soap oils I have used in like 500 soap videos here on YouTube. Every time you see me make a frosted top soap or a soap slab, I'm using this oil blend. The fact that you're not having to mix up 5 different oils, measuring each individually, hoping and praying that all of your measurements are exactly right is going to take a lot of the guesswork out of this equation for you, and it's going to be easier for you to get the perfect soap by the end of it all. Now, I've worked with many different fragrance oils. This is the first time that I have ever made a fragrance oil and offered it to the public before. When I partnered with 𝘰𝘬𝘧𝘧𝘦, I designed 9 different fragrance oils with their team to cover the spectrum of what soap makers are interested in. We have herbaceous fragrances, we have gourmand fragrances, we have fruity fragrances, floral fragrances. I wanted to make sure that in this collaboration, all the basics were covered. I feel like coffee is a necessary fragrance. It's incredibly popular during the fall and winter months, and that is what the Espresso Dream and Coffee Bean fragrance is. It has top notes of hazelnut and sugar, middle notes of coffee and cream, and base notes of both chocolate and vanilla. So it's a very complex coffee fragrance, but it is true to the coffee name. You're not gonna get something that smells like a baked good with this. It smells like coffee, and it performs exceptionally well in cold processed soap. I will have this entire recipe listed down below. When I fragrance my soap, I take my total oil weight. In today's case, that is 60 ounces. I calculate 5% of that total oil weight, which would be 3 ounces today. And that is how much fragrance I add to my soap if the IFRA guidelines and standards say that 5% is allowed. There are some fragrances that are not safe at that percentage, but I don't use any of those fragrances, so 5% is my standard. So let's look over our recipe together. First up is 60 ounces of the Royalty Soaps cold processed soap oils. Then we have 14.9 ounces of our 50/50 lye water and 6.25 ounces of coffee. The coffee is technically optional. If you would like to sub it out for water, coconut milk, goat milk, that's up to you. But because it's a coffee soap, it's fun for label appeal and it may add a little bit of extra color. I personally am going to be using coffee. You're also going to need 1 tablespoon of fine coffee grounds. This ends up being about 8 grams, and 8 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of pearl mica. I love using the pearl mica from 𝘰𝘬𝘧𝘧𝘦, but any other light colored mica will do. You're also going to need a pitcher to hold all of your soap oils. Again, this is the one from 𝘰𝘬𝘧𝘧𝘦. It holds 3,000 milliliters, so this is my entire batch of soap in 1 pitcher. You'll need a smaller pitcher if you're going to be doing the accent. If you're going to be dumping all of the mica into your base, you don't want to have layers or anything like that, you won't need this. But if you're following exactly what I'm doing, you're going to need an extra pitcher. You can get this from the dollar store. You are going going to need a stick blender. Now, I have lots of different recommendations for stick blenders. The ones that I have been using for the past year or so is from 𝘊𝘰𝘧𝘧𝘦𝘦 because it's a really great price and they have a lot of sales. You can also get a high quality stick blender from Amazon. I link that in the Royal Creative Academy, but I will also leave you guys a link to my soap making Amazon list down below in case you want to pick up scales, safety equipment, etc. I'm using 200 milliliter glass beakers to hold my fragrance oil and also my coffee. If you are more comfortable using a plastic, make sure that it is the recycling code number 2 or number 5 because fragrance oil can be corrosive. Don't use styrofoam. Trust me. I also have 2 little plastic cups that we can reuse after this project. One is for holding the coffee grounds. One is for holding the mica that I will end up mixing with my oils later. That's a lot of information up front, but again, everything is down in the description box below. You can read the entire recipe there. I just like having visuals. It helps me learn. Like the recipe says, we need 6.2 ounces of coffee, so let's go make some. I have recently been loving the Manatee Caribbean Delight. It's a low acid coffee and was actually recommended to me by you guys. So thank you. It's my favorite coffee ever. They give a portion of the proceeds back to the manatees. And the Caribbean Delight also has notes of coconut, hazelnut, and caramel, which pairs perfectly with our fragrance oil. I've already ground some up, so let's go make a cup. Poet and I didn't know it. Coffee has been brewed and chilled. It is now a little bit cold. I put it in the fridge. You can also just leave it on the counter until it comes to room temperature. So we're ready to put on our safety gear. Now I have an entire video just dedicated to soap making safety. Please go watch that before continuing if you've never made soap before. I'm not gonna go over all the safety stuff every single DIY video for fear of redundancy. Simply refer back to that video. Also going to put a hairnet on because you gross, hair in soap equals not great. Protective gear is on. Let's focus on the table and get all of our ingredients prepped. Like I said before, I have already measured out the coffee, the fragrance oil, the pearl mica, and the coffee grounds. I've also gone ahead and measured out my oils into this bucket and then heated it in the microwave for about 30 seconds to a minute until I achieved a little bit more clarity. The temperature I typically try to aim for is between 85 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm a little more specific at certain times, but that's the general range. I also have some extra coffee beans. This is completely optional, but I wanted to decorate the top of my soap with them. So let's measure out our 14.9 ounces of lye water solution. Again, everything is pre-blended for you, which makes it a lot less scary. And I do have all my safety equipment on. When you are finished pouring your lye water solution, make sure you seal it up tightly and keep it in a secure location away from pets and children. Lye water solution is heavier than you think it's going to be, so pour slowly. It's easy to pour too much because it is so heavy. It's heavier than just regular water. Perfect. Gonna move this off to the side. No cooling required. So let's look at what we have. We have our lye water solution and our oils. We have our coffee. We have our fragrance, and we have our coffee grounds and our mica. Now, the only other thing I'm going to do, again, optional, but definitely recommended, is to pour a little of my oils into my mica here. If you want to measure this out, you can. It's about a tablespoon. And then I'm going to mix it up using a popsicle stick. This is so that when I add it to my soap, it's a lot easier to incorporate and the powder doesn't go puff, puff, puffing everywhere. It also breaks up any little bit of powder that may be unincorporated. It just makes for an all-around easier incorporation into your soap batter. All right, I'm gonna set this off to the side. I'm gonna put a paper towel with a spatula off to the side here to use. And I have my 𝘊𝘰𝘧𝘧𝘦𝘦 5-pound mold with the lid off to the side and ready to use. Okay, let's talk about mixing. First thing we're going to do is add our coffee into our oils. And if you're thinking, but water and oil don't mix. It's true, but when you add the lye water solution in, it will. I'm gonna take my stick blender and I'm going to submerge it into my oils, give it a good little shake, tap my stick blender so any air bubbles come up, and then blend this together for about 10 seconds. If I let the oil and the coffee sit, it would separate, but I've mixed it up really fast now so that all of that coffee isn't just sitting on the top, so that we can add our lye water solution. Pour straight into your container. Some people like to lean their stick blender just like I did and let it go down and not splash. You can remove the stick blender head if you feel more comfortable doing that. And then very carefully, I'm gonna scrape out this container with my spatula, removing all of that 50-50 solution. And then to save myself some time on dishes, I'm actually going to use this container again for my accent on top. Set that spatula off to the side and blend for about 15 seconds. You will see it turn a really amazing color. All right, everything is blended in, nothing is sitting on the bottom, and my soap mixture isn't separating. It's fully incorporated. So now, if you choose to do an accent color, you can. I'm gonna pour off 20 ounces of batter. Then I'm going to add my really pretty pearl colorant. I'm going to add about 1/2 ounce of fragrance. And then the rest of the fragrance we're adding into our large container. I'm gonna set my accent color off to the side, add my coffee grounds, and blend. It really doesn't take long to blend that in. Anywhere from 8 to 15 seconds will be plenty of time because we already brought our soap to emulsion and to light trace. I'm gonna scrape down the sides of my container. I wanna make sure that every little bit of batter has some coffee grounds in it. I'm checking the edges to make sure that it has gone all the way to the bottom, which it has. It is getting a little thicker because we're working with 50-50 solution, because we're working with coffee. It can set up and get a little bit warmer. Here is my mold. We're just gonna start at one end and pour to the other. With my soap recipe, 60 ounces of oil is about the maximum you can get into one of these molds. If you want to play it safe, you could always make a recipe and calculate the lye water for 52 ounces of oil. That is what my recipes have in the Bubble Book, which comes with your purchase of any of the soap kits that I collabed with 𝘊𝘰𝘧𝘧𝘦𝘦 on. Now we're gonna tap this down gently. I'm not gonna take the time to smooth this down because I don't think it needs it. Let's move it to the side though so we can work on the top layer. Now for the top layer. If you don't want this layer to have any coffee grounds in it, looks pretty clean to me. Let's start blending this by hand. Wow, that looks so delicious and creamy. Always funny to say about a soap. If I was mixing up a larger batch, I'd probably use my stick blender that I also cleaned really well for this part, but because we're only doing one loaf, you really can mix in that fragrance and that mica by hand, and that'll also help keep your batter nice and runny. This is fully incorporated now, so I can pour it into my mold. All right, let's just ladle this right in. That layer is already hard on the bottom, so no fear. Pour away. Before I get the rest in there, I'm gently going to bounce my spatula just a little bit side to side. Make sure that it is fully in the mold here and there are no cracks on the side. And like I said, 60 ounces is kind of the furthest edge of capacity for this mold. Scrapey, scrapey, get every little bit out of that container. And again, we want to smooth this out to make sure that everybody is getting the same amount of soap on each bar. This is a handmade product. It's not going to be perfect, but you don't want certain bars being like a half an ounce bigger than others. Now for my favorite part, soap texturing. You could use a fork. You can use a popsicle stick. You can leave it just like this. It's up to you. I love the way a big popsicle stick looks on the side, even if it's just a teeny tiny bit of texture like I'm doing here. If I wanted more pronounced texture, I'd wait a little while longer until my soap has set up. But for this soap, I'm just adding a little tiny bit, just putting my popsicle stick at an angle and pulling to the middle. And now I'm going to swirl down the middle of my soap. Perfect. This is optional, but I still like to do it. I like to clean up the edges of my mold. This just saves a little bit of cleanup time later when you unmold your soap. It takes a few seconds to do, and it makes it so that getting all the extra pieces of soap off your mold is a lot faster tomorrow. What do you do when your soap mold is brand new and you haven't made any marks on it? Well, it's pretty simple. I always leave about 1/4 of an inch right here at the end to mark where my sample bars are going to be. And then you can just eyeball where that first soap is going to be. Then you can try to line up by making a little divot on every single inch mark. This doesn't have to be perfect, especially if you're hand cutting with a single bar cutter. But I'm really bad at guessing, so it's nice to have some sort of a line, even if it's off a little bit. Make sure you leave a mark big enough that you won't mistake it for part of your texture. And when you count backwards, you should have 16 marks. Now for placing our little coffee beans. I'm gonna place 2 or 3 on top of every bar, trying to make them sort of in a line so they won't get in the way of my soap cutter or blade, whichever one you happen to be using. No shame if this is your first time making soap or you're a brand new soap maker and just using a knife and a cutting board. Take your time and have fun with this step. You've got lots of workability time with this recipe. Last little bean, and we're done. Another optional but extremely effective and inexpensive addition is a bottle of 90% rubbing alcohol. Fill it up and spritz the top of this soap after you've made it. This will help cut back on soda ash, and I just think it makes the soap look a little bit glossier on top. And as hard as it is, it's time to put our soap to bed. Now, if you have used 60 ounces of oil like I have, the soap is now too tall for you to put the wooden lid on top. But if you're using 52.5 ounces of oil and have opted for a smaller batch, like what's in the bubble book, you are safe to put that lid on. Now, the hard part. We have to let this soap sit for 18 to 24 hours. If you check the edges after that amount of time and it's still sticky, let it sit for another day. I'm gonna put this in a safe space away from kids, pets, or any adult that might want to eat it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow so that we can unmold and take a look at the inside. It has been almost exactly 24 hours for me. On the bottom of the Makesy 5-pound mold are these holes to help you release the soap. I'm going to peel back ever so gently from the sides. Again, it is a little bit sticky, but I'm willing to go ahead and just cut it now. If you want to unmold cleanly, let it sit for more time, or you can pop this into the freezer. All right, set this down here. Another reason I wanted to unmold mine a little bit early was to show you what you could do if you end up with sticky sides. This is a really common thing that a lot of beginner soap makers run into. Sometimes it's due to underblending. Sometimes it has to do with the fragrance oil or simply not letting your soap sit for long enough. But if it happens to you, don't worry. It's an aesthetic issue and it can be fixed. It's still quite sticky, so I'm going to turn it on its side and you're going to see all these little areas where my soap isn't exactly smooth. So you have a few options. If it's really not that bad, you can take a paint scraper like this and just sort of smooth down the sides a little bit. I find this works really, really, really well. Also keep in mind, it is a handmade product. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna turn it on the other side, and on this side, I'm just gonna show you my ruler. If you don't have a paint scraper around, a hard ruler, even the back of a butter knife can really help make all the difference. Lovely. And then once it's out of the mold, okay, just like I have it here, you can just wait. You don't have to cut it right away, especially once you saw that it was sticky. I'm gonna let this sit for a little while longer just to help firm it up a bit more before I cut it. But if your soap sticks to the side of the mold like this, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. We will take this silicone liner, wash it with warm water. You don't need any soap because it's been pre-soaped. Let it dry and use it again. Have my soap sitting off to the side, and I just wanted to show you guys this cutter from Amazon. At the original filming of the first set of videos in the Royal Creative Academy, this did not exist. You basically had a knife and a cutting board or a cheese cutter. But nowadays, you can get a soap cutter for $30 to $50, just depends on what the sales look like. At the time of filming and uploading this video, it is Black Friday and Cyber Monday weekend of 2024. So this is the perfect time to shop for a helpful soap making tool like a soap cutter. It has an adjustable cutter width on the side here. I have mine set at a 1-inch bar thickness, but you can move it all the way out to about 3.5 inches. For the sake of the video, I will go ahead and cut just one bar before we do the rest. I'm gonna line it up by pushing it up against my marker here and then just pressing down gently. Since my soap is so soft, it's really, really easy to cut. I'll remove that big loaf to let sit for a little while. And this is what a perfect 1-inch soap bar looks like. You can see the coffee grounds on the bottom. This will discolor a little bit more over time, nothing too dramatic. And then the top creamy layer with our cute little accents. If you're hoping to take your soap making journey more professional, I would definitely recommend investing in a multi-bar cutter. This will make cutting a fraction of the time it was before. However, if you are making soap as a hobby, this is not a piece of equipment I recommend upgrading to because you're not making soap to be the most efficient thing possible. You're doing it as a hobby to enjoy it. So enjoy your cutting process. Line up the rest of my soap here. Have a nice sample bar here on the end and perfect bars of soap cut again to 1-inch thickness. And I just have to say, imagine if this was your first bar of cold process soap. Whenever I first started soap making, that statement would have been too good to be true, but I haven't been making soap for 10+ years just to gatekeep all my hacks, recipes, tips of the trade. I'm here to help you, and this is only one recipe of many I will be creating over the next few months. So if there are any particular ingredients you would like me to use or recipes you want me to formulate and then share with you guys 100% free here on YouTube, let me know down in the comments below. Just gonna take these last couple of soaps away, move my cutter, and like I said, we have 16 bars of cold processed soap ready for curing. Now I do recommend a 3 to 4 week cure time minimum on these particular bars. Some people like to go out to 6, but this soap does have a severe water discount. And if you're packaging in cardboard, that's not necessary. The soap will continue to cure as it sits in your boxes. And speaking of boxes, let's clean up one of these bars and we will box it up. In ordinary circumstances, I would wait at least a day before doing this. You're going to get the best beveling. Right now, the soap is so soft that it is smearing a little bit, and ordinarily you would hope that it just cleans right off like a carrot. But you can see I like to do all 6 edges here, and then I leave the top as is. Then I would wait for, again, at least 3 weeks before boxing. This is the box that I painstakingly made with Caleb for our 𝘗𝘰𝘧𝘧𝘦 collaboration. It fits all soaps made with a 5-pound wooden mold, lots of suppliers carry that size mold. It's extremely common for soap makers to make bars in that shape. And if you were boxing this up at the appropriate time, there will be some shrinkage on these bars. They won't be quite as thick as this one is now, so they'll slide right in with ease. And remember, this soap was made with the absolute maximum amount of oil that can fit into that mold, and then you will still have a bit of a gap on the top so that none of your decorations will be squished. Tuck the tab in. The soap won't wobble side to side, and we have a cute little cutout so that you can smell the bar on the inside. And I wanted to show you guys that I made y'all a label to put on your boxes, or if you shrink wrap the soaps, whatever you decide to do. I made this one sort of a cigar band style. It has all the ingredients on the back, and then I left you guys some room if you want to put the weight, if you want to put a little note to someone. I printed these labels at home on a $60 printer. I keep my very crappy printer around so that you guys can see the quality that you can expect if you print at home. I cut it out with a pair of scissors and I printed it on the Online Labels matte label paper. If I was receiving this as a gift, I would be so thrilled. Link to download the label template is down below with the recipe we used today. I'm so glad you guys decided to join me for this DIY tutorial today. I cannot wait to make more videos like this. I love that it starts with prep and ended with boxing and labeling. I love that I get to give you guys like a free little label printout. I love that it's a complete project, and I want to do more like that in 2025. Like I said before, let me know what ingredients you want me to use. Do you want goat milk soap? Do you want beer soaps? You want cucumber soaps? Your wish is my command. We're gonna do it for free. I do not like paywalling my content. You guys know that. I hope you all have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. So until then, bye for now. Meow.